Mercury will transit Taurus from May 15th to May 29th, and during this period it will move with the Sun. At the same time, Venus will be in Gemini with Jupiter, creating a sign exchange between Mercury and Venus, which makes this transit more active than a normal short Mercury movement. Saturn will be aspecting Taurus from Pisces. That combination gives this transit a practical, business-minded, and slightly intense tone, especially for speech, money, decisions, and daily work. It is essential to note that these interpretations are based on Sidereal or Vedic Astrology, which accounts for the approximately 24-degree difference with the tropical zodiac. Mercury is the planet of communication, logic, calculation, trade, learning, memory, writing, speech, and quick thinking. It is a fast-moving planet, so its transit does not stay long in one sign, but it still shapes the mood of the period and the kind of topics people naturally focus on. Mercury becomes stronger when it is supported by friendly planets, and it becomes more complicated when it is influenced by heavier or harsher energies. In Taurus, Mercury gets grounded. It stops rushing and starts thinking in terms of value, stability, resources, and useful results. This is not a purely intellectual transit. It is a transit that asks, what is practical, what is profitable, and what can be built to last. Taurus is ruled by Venus, so Mercury in Taurus tends to make communication smoother, more pleasant, and more attractive. People may speak more carefully and may choose words that sound calm, sensible, and useful. This can be a very good period for business talks, money planning, negotiations, content writing, sales, marketing, music, voice work, and any task where clear but appealing communication matters. Taurus is also connected with food, comfort, art, luxury, and possessions, so Mercury here can make people more curious about those subjects. Many people may spend time comparing prices, organizing savings, or thinking about how to make life more comfortable in a steady way. The sign exchange between Mercury in Taurus and Venus in Gemini gives this transit a special flavor. Mercury and Venus are natural friends, so their connection often supports creativity, polished speech, design sense, music, numbers, and social intelligence. This is a useful period for people who work with words and beauty at the same time, such as writers, singers, teachers, designers, marketers, media people, and business owners. The mind can become more balanced and more refined. Ideas can be expressed in a simple way without losing style. That is one of the best qualities of this transit, because it supports communication that feels both intelligent and pleasant. At the same time, there is a caution here. Taurus is a fixed sign, so Mercury may become slower, more stubborn, or more attached to one opinion. People may not change their mind easily. Some may become overly focused on money, comfort, or material security. Because Mercury is moving with the Sun, there can also be more pride in speech, more directness, and at times more pressure to prove a point. This can help in leadership communication, but it can also create ego clashes if people stop listening. Saturn's aspect can add responsibility, seriousness, delays, or a need for careful planning before speaking or signing anything important. So this transit is excellent for practical thinking, but not ideal for careless promises. Another important layer is the house Mercury rules in a birth chart. Mercury does not give the same result to everyone. For some people it will activate career matters, for some family matters, for some education, and for some finances. The result will also depend on Mercury's condition in the natal chart, the running dasha, and the planets influencing Mercury in transit. If Mercury is strong in the birth chart, this can be a productive period for study, business deals, writing, networking, and financial organization. If Mercury is weak or under stress, the person may feel mentally busy, distracted, or stuck in over analysis. Even then, Taurus usually pushes Mercury toward practical use, so the mind keeps returning to real-world concerns. Overall, Mercury in Taurus is a transit of measured speech, sensible thinking, financial awareness, and useful communication. It supports steady planning more than quick movement. It helps people speak in a way that is calm, polished, and grounded. With Venus and Jupiter adding softness and expansion, this can also be a creative and profitable period if the energy is used well. The best approach is simple. Think clearly, speak slowly, choose words with care, and focus on what can be built, saved, improved, or made lasting. In that way, this Mercury transit can become one of the more productive and financially useful short transits of the season. It's crucial to recognize Mercury symbolizes communication influenced by surroundings, mirroring how conversations reflect one's company. In essence, Mercury's transit triggers curiosity regarding matters related to the sign and house it traverses, prompting information gathering and sharing, aligning with Mercury's fundamental nature to communicate and exchange knowledge. To assess the impact of this transit, it's crucial to consider your ascendant and moon signs. The ascendant sign provides insights into the timing of life events, while the moon sign reveals how you'll emotionally respond to these changes. Consider the position of your current Mahadasha Lord in your birth chart, as it can shed light on how these transits will influence the recurring themes of your current dasha period. A more precise understanding of the impact of this transit can be gained by examining Mercury's Ashtakavarga score in Taurus. Keep in mind that the effects of this transit will differ from person to person, contingent on Mercury's interaction with the planets in their individual birth charts, or its transit through the zodiac. It's also worth noting that individuals currently experiencing the influence of Mercury dasha may feel the effects of this transit more intensely. It's important to remember that the effects of this transit will vary for each person. To understand how this transit may affect you based on your zodiac sign and the houses it transits, let's delve into those specifics. For Aries, Mercury is moving through Taurus, which is your second house, from May 15th to May 29th. The second house is about your wealth, accumulated savings, family environment, the way you communicate within your close circle, and your overall sense of financial security. Mercury naturally rules your third house through Gemini, and your sixth house through Virgo. So wherever Mercury travels in the sky, it carries the energy of your efforts, your business instincts, your analytical side, and your ability to communicate. For these 2 weeks, all of that energy is being channeled directly into your financial zone. Now, the most important thing happening during this transit is the sign exchange between Mercury in Taurus and Venus in Gemini. Venus is your second and seventh house lord. Venus has moved into Gemini, which is your third house, and is sitting there with Jupiter. Mercury is in Taurus, your second house. These two planets are in each other's signs simultaneously. Mercury is in Venus's sign, and Venus is in Mercury's sign. This creates a Parivartana Yoga, which essentially means that each planet is functioning from the other planet's home, creating a loop of energy between your second and third houses. In practical terms, this loop connects your income directly to your communication, your business activity, and the efforts you put in through your own initiative. The third house is about the work you do with your own hands and mind, your side projects, your freelance work, your pitching, your networking, and your business conversations. The second house is where money actually sits. When these two houses are in a Parivartana, there is a direct pipeline between effort and financial outcome. If you put in the work and have the right conversations this fortnight, money is far more likely to follow. Venus is sitting in your third house with Jupiter, which adds expansion and optimism to every business conversation you initiate. Jupiter amplifies Venus's natural tendency toward beauty, value, and connection. This means the ideas you put out there right now, the proposals you send, the creative pitches you make, the introductions you make to potential clients or collaborators, all of these carry more weight and reach further than they normally would. If you have been sitting on a business idea or a financial proposal, this is genuinely a good window to put it into action. Mercury in Taurus also changes the quality of your communication. Taurus slows Mercury down in a useful way. You are less likely to speak impulsively and more likely to choose your words carefully and with a certain warmth and weight. Taurus gives Mercury a richness in expression. Your voice carries more sensory depth, your language feels more grounded and trustworthy, and people around you are more inclined to listen. If you are in any kind of sales role, negotiations, customer-facing work, or any situation where your words need to earn trust, this is a window to lean into that fully. For creative professionals, writers, musicians, marketers, content creators, designers, this Mercury-Venus Parivartana through Taurus and Gemini is specifically favorable. Your creative output during these 2 weeks will carry a natural blend of intelligence and beauty. Work produced in this window tends to have a quality that resonates more deeply with audiences. If you are planning to release content, pitch a creative project, or launch something that requires both skill and aesthetic appeal, the period from May 15th to 29th is worth using intentionally. Sun is also transiting through Taurus alongside Mercury, placing it in your second house as well. Sun rules your fifth house of Leo, so the energy of creativity, intelligence, children, and self-expression is also converging in your wealth zone. This can mean you are thinking more about how to make money through creative means, or that financial conversations with or around your children are happening. Sun in the second house also makes your speech more direct and authoritative during this time. You speak with more confidence about money and family matters, which can be genuinely useful if you have been avoiding a financial conversation that needs to happen. One thing to keep in mind is that Saturn is sitting in Pisces and casting its aspect on your second house throughout this period. Saturn's presence here does not block the Parivartana Yoga from working, but it does slow down the final results. You might have a great conversation, close a deal, or put in significant effort, but the actual money or acknowledgement may arrive a little later than expected. Do not interpret a delay as a failure. Saturn in Pisces aspecting your second house simply means that financial rewards require patience and a degree of discipline. Impulsive spending during this time is also something to watch. Saturn here can make you realize your expenses are outpacing your planning, so it is a good window to also look at where your money is going, not just how to bring more in. If you are someone running your own business, this window is especially significant. Your ability to communicate your value is at a peak. Your pricing conversations, your client interactions, your follow-up messages, and your proposals are all operating with more clarity and persuasiveness right now. The third house Mercury-Venus with Jupiter is also excellent for word-of-mouth business referrals, and introductions from your existing network can bring in new income sources in the coming weeks. For those of you going through Mercury's Mahadasha or Antarctica, this transit hits harder and more personally. You will feel the second and third house themes much more directly. Financial decisions made in this window will have longer-lasting consequences, both good and not so good, depending on your overall chart. Approach the financial choices of this fortnight with intention. Overall, this is a genuinely active and productive window for Aries. Focus your energy on putting your skills and communication to work in service of your income. The Parivartana between your second and third houses through Mercury and Venus is one of the more useful transit configurations you will encounter this year. Use it practically and deliberately. For Taurus, Mercury is transiting through your first house, from May 15th to May 29th. The first house is your identity, your physical body, your overall personality, and the lens through which you see the world. It is also the house that describes how you present yourself to others. Mercury rules your second house through Gemini and your fifth house through Virgo. So for these 2 weeks, the planet of communication, intelligence, and quick thinking is sitting right in your own sign, your own first house, and it brings with it the energy of your finances, your family, and your creative and intellectual instincts. The defining feature of this transit is the Parivartana Yoga forming between Mercury and Venus. Mercury is in Taurus, your first house, which is Venus's own sign. Venus is the lord of your first house and your sixth house. Venus has moved into Gemini, which is your second house, and is sitting there with Jupiter. Mercury, which rules your second and fifth houses, is now sitting in Venus's sign in your first house, while Venus, your first house lord, is in Mercury's sign in your second house. The two planets are in each other's signs simultaneously, creating a powerful loop between your first and second houses. What this means practically is that your identity, your personality, and the way you show up in the world is directly linked to your financial life during this transit. The way you present yourself is influencing your income potential, and your financial mindset is shaping how you express yourself. This is a 2-week window where who you are and what you say about yourself can directly move money. For Taurus individuals, which is a sign deeply associated with value, worth, and resources, this loop is particularly meaningful. Mercury sitting in your first house will make you noticeably more talkative, curious, and communicative than usual. Taurus is not a naturally fast-paced sign, but Mercury will quicken your mental pace for these 2 weeks. You will find yourself collecting information, processing more data, thinking through problems with sharper clarity, and sharing your thoughts more readily. Your conversations will be more frequent and more intelligent. People around you will notice that you are more mentally active and engaged. Venus with Jupiter in your second house is a strong placement. The second house for Taurus is about your accumulated wealth, your savings, your family life, and your speaking voice. Venus is your first house lord sitting in the house of wealth with the planet of expansion. This is genuinely favorable for your financial situation. Income-related conversations and opportunities are active right now. Jupiter adds growth energy to whatever Venus touches in the second house, so family resources, financial planning conversations, and income discussions all carry a more expansive and optimistic quality this fortnight. Sun is also in Taurus, sitting in your first house alongside Mercury. Sun rules your fourth house through Leo for Taurus individuals. The fourth house is about home, mother, property, emotional foundations, and domestic life. With the Sun in your first house, there is a strong sense of self-authority and confidence being projected outward. Your will and your identity feel more aligned than usual. But Sun also brings the energy of your home and property into your first house awareness, meaning you may be thinking a great deal about your living situation, family matters, and whether your personal circumstances at home are supporting or limiting your growth. Home-related decisions could come to your attention during this window. The Mercury-Venus Parivartana for Taurus individuals is especially useful for anyone in a creative or communication-based profession. Mercury in your first house gives you a voice right now. You are naturally more articulate. Combined with Venus in your second house with Jupiter, there is an aesthetic intelligence to your expression that people find appealing. Writers, speakers, artists, musicians, educators, and anyone who earns through their personal voice and presence will feel this window strongly. Your ability to communicate your own worth and value is heightened. From a health perspective, Mercury in the first house can sometimes bring slight mental restlessness or overthinking. The pace of your thoughts may quicken during these 2 weeks, and you may find it harder to slow down mentally in the evenings. This is normal under a first house Mercury transit. Make sure you are getting enough rest, especially because Saturn is casting its aspect onto Taurus from Pisces, which adds a layer of seriousness and responsibility to your first house throughout this period. Saturn's influence here can create a quiet pressure, a feeling that there is always something more to do, something to improve, or something to organize. Do not ignore rest because of this pressure. Build some downtime into these 2 weeks deliberately. Saturn's aspect on your first house also means that any health matters you have been avoiding may surface for attention. This is not a prediction of illness, but Saturn on the first house tends to bring a reality check around your body and habits. Use Mercury's transit here as an opportunity to research, plan, and communicate with healthcare professionals if needed. Mercury in the first house is excellent for gathering health information and making practical decisions about your well-being. For Taurus individuals who are in the process of building something new, a business, a brand, a creative project, a personal transformation, this is a useful 2 weeks. The Parivartana between Mercury and Venus connects your sense of self to your financial and family foundation. Whatever you do to strengthen your self-presentation, clarify your message, or improve the way you communicate who you are will have a direct ripple into your second house. Invest in how you come across this fortnight. Update your professional profile, have the conversation you have been putting off, say out loud what you have been keeping to yourself. This Mercury transit through Taurus is a quiet but productive one for your sign. The results may not always be dramatic and visible, but the mental clarity, the improved communication, and the income-related awareness are genuine and practical gains. Use these 2 weeks to sharpen your financial thinking and let Mercury's intelligence work through your Taurian stability. For Gemini, Mercury is moving through Taurus, which is your 12th house, from May 15th to May 29th. The 12th house is one of the more complex and inward-oriented houses in the chart. It governs expenses, losses, foreign connections, isolated places, sleep, spiritual retreat, and the unconscious mind. It is also the house of things that happen behind the scenes. Mercury rules your first house through Gemini and your fourth house through Virgo. So the planet that represents your very identity and your sense of home and roots is now moving through the house of withdrawal, foreign lands, and hidden matters. The Parivartana Yoga that forms during this transit is between Mercury in Taurus, your 12th house, and Venus in Gemini, your first house. Venus rules your 12th house through Taurus and your 5th house through Libra. Venus is currently in your first house alongside Jupiter. Mercury is in Venus's sign in your 12th house, while Venus is in Mercury's sign in your first house. These two planets have swapped houses, creating a loop between your 1st and 12th houses. For Gemini individuals, this is a deeply inward-looking and introspective Parivartana. Your first house is your identity, your presence, your way of being in the world. Your 12th house is everything that operates behind that presence, your private thoughts, your spiritual life, your subconscious patterns, your connection to things that are not visible to others. With Mercury and Venus in a loop between these two houses, you are likely to spend significant mental and emotional energy this fortnight going inward, examining yourself, reflecting on things that normally stay in the background. On a very practical level, This configuration often shows up as a period of creative seclusion. Writers, musicians, artists, and anyone who does deep intellectual or creative work may find that the 12th house Mercury, exchanging with Venus in the first, supports working in solitude. Some of the most meaningful creative output can emerge from quiet, undistracted work during this kind of transit. If your life permits any kind of retreat, solo creative time, or deliberate isolation for a project, this fortnight is a good window for it. Venus sitting in your first house with Jupiter is genuinely beautiful for your overall personality projection. Jupiter expands everything it touches, and with Venus as your 12th house lord elevated by Jupiter in your first house, there is a kind of magnetic, artistic quality to how you come across to others right now. People find you aesthetically pleasing, warm, and spiritually grounded during this period. Even if you feel more internally focused, externally you may be coming across quite well. Sun is also transiting Taurus, sitting in your 12th house alongside Mercury. Sun rules your 3rd house through Leo for Gemini individuals. The 3rd house is about communication, efforts, siblings, and short travels. The 3rd house lord being in the 12th means some of your communication energy is being spent on private matters, behind-the-scenes efforts, or foreign interactions. There could be communication with people in other cities or countries. There could be spending related to communication tools, education, or travel. Some of your mental and vocal energy is simply going inward rather than outward. Mercury in the 12th house also tends to increase dream activity and subconscious processing. You may find that your mind is working overtime in a quieter, more internal way. This is actually useful if you are trying to solve a complex problem or work through something emotionally, because Mercury in the 12th house can surface buried information, hidden insights, and solutions that were not accessible when Mercury was in more active and extroverted positions. Financially, there is a caution to observe during this transit. The 12th house governs expenses, and Mercury here can indicate a period where you are thinking a great deal about money that is going out rather than coming in. Your mind naturally turns toward your spending patterns, your hidden financial obligations, or even financial fears that you have not fully examined. Combined with Saturn's aspect on Taurus from Pisces, there is some additional weight around financial matters this fortnight. This does not mean a crisis, but it does mean that careless spending or ignoring financial paperwork could create unnecessary stress. Use Mercury's analytical energy in the 12th to do a real audit of your expenses and to get clarity on any financial matters that have been sitting in the background. If you have any connection to foreign countries' work, study, relationships, or pending travel plans, this is an active area during this transit. The 12th house is the house of foreign lands, and Mercury here can signal conversations, paperwork, or communication related to foreign matters becoming active. With Sun also in the 12th, there is a sense of authority or decision-making around something that involves crossing a physical or cultural boundary. For Gemini individuals going through Mercury's Mahadasha or Antardasha, the 12th house transit of Mercury tends to feel quite significant. There may be a sense of fatigue, of needing to withdraw from the usual pace of life, or of wanting to spend more time alone. Honor that impulse if you can. Mercury is not damaged by the 12th house, but it does shift from being outward-facing to inward-facing. Your intelligence is still very much active, it is simply working on a different kind of problem during this fortnight. Spiritually, this is one of the more meaningful Mercury transits of the year for Gemini. Mercury-Venus Parivartana between the 1st and 12th house can trigger a genuine interest in metaphysical subjects, energy healing, meditation, and self-inquiry. If you have been curious about these areas but never made time for them, this fortnight is actually a supportive window to begin. The combination of Mercury's curiosity and Venus's aesthetic and spiritual sensitivity, amplified by Jupiter's presence in your first house, creates a natural pull toward the deeper and more beautiful dimensions of human experience. Overall, this is an inward and reflective transit for Gemini. The practical gains are more subtle creative work that happens quietly, financial clarity that comes from honest self-examination, and spiritual insight that comes from intentional reflection. Do not push for loud, outward results during these 2 weeks. Trust the process of turning inward. For Cancer, Mercury is transiting through Taurus, your 11th house, from May 15th to May 29th. The 11th house is about your income beyond salary, your gains, your social network, your elder siblings, your friends, your long-term aspirations, and the kind of connections that bring opportunities into your life. Mercury rules your 3rd house through Virgo, and your 12th house through Gemini. So Mercury here brings the energy of your communication and efforts on one hand, and your expenses and foreign connections on the other, into the zone of your income and social network. The Parivartana Yoga during this transit is between Mercury in Taurus, your 11th house, and Venus in Gemini, your 12th house. Venus is your 11th and 4th house lord. Venus has moved into your 12th house alongside Jupiter. Mercury, which rules your 3rd and 12th houses, is now in your 11th house in Venus's sign. Venus, which rules your 11th and 4th houses, is in Mercury's sign in your 12th house. The two planets have swapped, creating a loop between your 11th and 12th houses. This is an interesting and layered configuration. The 11th house is about income, gains, and network. The 12th house is about expenses, foreign lands, spirituality, and dissolution. A parivartana between these two houses creates a dynamic where your income and your expenses are deeply intertwined. For some Cancer individuals, this will show up as a period where money comes in from unexpected or foreign sources, perhaps income from online work, international clients, or projects connected to overseas markets. For others, it may show up as a period where spending is increasing but the gains are also increasing, meaning the net result is relatively neutral. What makes this Parivartana more positive than it might initially seem is Jupiter's presence in your 12th house alongside Venus. Jupiter is the planet of expansion, wisdom, and dharma. Jupiter in the 12th house, especially for Cancer individuals, where Jupiter is the lord of the 6th and 9th houses, tends to support spiritual growth, foreign connections, and an expansion of the inner life. Venus and Jupiter together in your 12th house create a genuinely beautiful combination for anyone involved in international business, creative work for foreign clients, spiritual teaching or learning, or anything that requires working across borders, cultural lines, or at a distance from home. Mercury in your 11th house is excellent for networking and for communicating with your social circle in ways that are productive. This is a time when the conversations you have with friends, colleagues, elder siblings, or anyone in your wider network are more likely to produce something tangible. An idea shared over a casual conversation, a contact introduced through a mutual friend, or a post or message you send into your network. These small communicative acts can translate into actual income or opportunities over the coming weeks. Mercury in the 11th is specifically good for income through communication, writing, social media, content, or any form of networked effort. Sun is also in Taurus, sitting in your 11th house alongside Mercury. Sun rules your 2nd house through Leo for Cancer individuals. The 2nd house is about your accumulated wealth, your family, and your speech. With the 2nd house lord in the 11th house, the connection between your family wealth and your wider income opportunities is highlighted. There may be family-level conversations about finances, investments, or future planning that happen during this window. Your voice within your family on financial matters carries more authority than usual. There could also be income that is connected to a family resource or a family business. For Cancer individuals in careers that involve networking, sales, client management, or any field where your social connections are a direct income driver, this 2-week window is one of the more active periods of May. Mercury in the 11th house specifically favors business communication, follow-ups, introductions, and the kind of informal interactions that build professional relationships over time. Do not underestimate the value of reaching out to someone you have not spoken with in a while or of sharing your work more openly with your network. Saturn's aspect on Taurus from Pisces is landing on your 11th house this fortnight. Saturn aspecting the 11th house tends to create a certain seriousness around your income and social life. You may be thinking quite practically about whether your current network is actually supporting your goals, or whether you are spending time in social circles that are not adding real value. Saturn here is helpful in that it pushes you to be more selective and intentional about where you invest your social energy. Some friendships or professional connections may feel more transactional and less rewarding than usual, and that is actually Saturn doing useful work helping you see clearly which relationships are genuinely reciprocal. There is also a practical note around expenses. With Mercury ruling your 12th house and Venus sitting in the 12th with Jupiter, spending is likely to be more active than usual. This is not necessarily a bad thing. Jupiter in the 12th often indicates that money spent in this period comes back with interest, especially when connected to education, spiritual work, foreign travel, or creative investments. But careless or emotionally impulsive spending should be avoided. The Mercury-Venus Parivartana between your 11th and 12th houses is most useful for those doing any kind of foreign or distance-based work, content that reaches an international audience, or projects that operate behind the scenes and build quietly without immediate fanfare. The results of what you do in this fortnight may not be immediately visible, but they are likely to show up meaningfully over the next few weeks. Overall, this is a productive but inwardly dynamic transit for Cancer. Focus on income-building conversations, network-level communication, and be thoughtful about expenses. The loop between your 11th and 12th houses is asking you to be intentional not just about what comes in, but about where it goes. For Leo, Mercury is transiting through Taurus, your 10th house, from May 15th to May 29th. The 10th house is one of the most important houses in astrology. It governs your career, your public reputation, your professional standing, your relationship with authority figures including bosses and government, and everything that the world sees you doing in your public life. Mercury rules your 11th house through Gemini, and your 2nd house through Virgo. So the planet of communication and intelligence is now sitting in your career zone, bringing with it the energy of income, gains, and financial security. This is already a strong placement on its own, but what makes this transit genuinely powerful for Leo individuals is the Parivartana Yoga between Mercury and Venus. Mercury is in Taurus, your 10th house. Venus rules your 10th house through Taurus and your 3rd house through Libra. Venus is currently in Gemini, which is your 11th house, with Jupiter. Mercury rules your 11th and 2nd houses and is sitting in your 10th. The exchange creates a loop between your 10th and 11th houses, your career house, and your income and gains house. This is a Maha Parivartana Yoga, meaning both planets are in auspicious houses, and the energy of this exchange is directly supportive of professional growth and financial gain. In practical terms, what this means for Leo is that your career activity right now has a direct pathway to increased income. The work you do, the conversations you have professionally, the projects you complete, and the professional presence you maintain during this fortnight are all feeding directly into your income potential. This is not a transit where hard work goes unnoticed. The exchange between the 10th and 11th house lords through Mercury and Venus creates a kind of reward loop. The more intentional professional effort you put in, the more clearly it translates into financial gain. Venus sitting in your 11th house with Jupiter is an exceptional combination. Jupiter is the planet of expansion and abundance, and Venus is your 10th house lord. The 10th house lord sitting in the 11th house, elevated by Jupiter, is a classic indicator of recognition, reward, and income growth through professional channels. This is the kind of configuration where a salary negotiation could go well, where a long-pending professional acknowledgement finally arrives, or where a new income opportunity emerges through your professional circle. Do not be passive during this window. Be vocal about your value and what you bring to the table. Sun is also transiting Taurus, sitting in your 10th house alongside Mercury. For Leo individuals, Sun rules your 1st house, your identity, your vitality, and your core self-expression. Sun in the 10th house is naturally a very powerful placement. It brings the energy of your identity and self-authority directly into your career zone. You are likely to feel more confident, more visible, and more willing to take up space professionally during this period. Decision makers and authority figures, your boss, your clients, government bodies are more likely to see you and take you seriously. This is a window where being bold and direct in professional communication actually pays off. Mercury in the 10th house makes your professional communication sharper and more active. You will find yourself having more conversations about work, more meetings, more emails, more discussions about direction, strategy, and progress. The quality of your professional communication during this period is higher than usual, which can be leveraged deliberately. If there is a presentation, a proposal, a pitch, or a performance review coming up during or just after this window, prepare for it carefully. Mercury in Taurus gives your professional communication a grounded and authoritative quality. You sound like someone who knows exactly what they are talking about. For Leo individuals who are self-employed, freelancers, or business owners, this transit is particularly well-timed. The 10th-11th Parivartana through Mercury and Venus means that your business activity and your client or customer network are feeding each other actively. New work coming through existing clients, referrals from professional contacts, or an uptick in inquiries from your online or in-person presence, these are all natural outcomes of this configuration. Make sure your professional presence is updated and active during this window. Any work you do to improve how your business or professional brand is perceived, updating your portfolio, being more active on a professional platform, attending an industry event will have a strong ripple effect. Saturn's aspect from Pisces is falling on your 10th house during this period. Saturn aspecting the 10th house does introduce some friction and seriousness into your professional life. There may be additional responsibilities, more demanding expectations from superiors, or a period where the workload feels heavier than usual. Saturn does not remove the positive effects of the Mercury-Venus Parivartana, but it does require that the results come through genuine effort and disciplined work rather than shortcuts. Any professional temptation to cut corners or to oversell your abilities should be avoided during Saturn's watchful eye on your career house. For Leo individuals in government service, law, public administration, or any field that interfaces with authority and public-facing institutions, this transit is especially significant. Mercury in the 10th with Sun alongside it is a strong configuration for communication with government bodies, legal proceedings going in your favor, or official recognition of your work. If you have any pending applications, submissions, or official processes, this is a good window to push them forward. The Mercury-Venus Parivartana with Jupiter's expansion in the 11th house also favors income through creative or intellectual channels. For Leo individuals in media, entertainment, publishing, teaching, or any field that blends creative intelligence with professional credibility, the work you do in these 2 weeks can open doors that stay open for months. This is one of the strongest Mercury transit windows of the year for Leo. Use it to be visible, to be vocal, and to let your professional communication do real work. For Virgo, Mercury is transiting through Taurus, your 9th house, from May 15th to May 29th. The 9th house is the house of higher wisdom, fortune, long-distance travel, your teachers and gurus, religious or philosophical inclinations, and the overall sense of dharma or righteous path in your life. It is one of the most auspicious houses in the chart. Mercury rules your 1st house through Virgo and your 10th house through Gemini. Having both the 1st house lord and the 10th house lord as the same planet, and that planet moving into the 9th house, is a very favorable configuration. The Parivartana Yoga that forms during this transit is exceptionally powerful for Virgo individuals. Mercury is in Taurus, your 9th house. Venus rules your 9th house through Taurus, and your 2nd house through Libra. Venus has moved into Gemini, which is your 10th house, with Jupiter. Mercury rules your 1st and 10th houses, and Venus rules your 9th and 2nd houses. The exchange between Mercury and Venus here is between the 9th and 10th house lords of classic Dharma-Karma Yoga. The Lord of Dharma and the Lord of Action have swapped houses. This is considered one of the most powerful Parivartana yogas possible, particularly for career, public life, and overall fortune. What makes it particularly significant for Virgo is that Mercury itself is your 1st house lord, meaning the planet that represents your identity, and your entire chart's foundation is deeply engaged in this exchange. In practical terms, the 9th-10th Parivartana between Mercury and Venus means that your professional life and your sense of purpose are deeply aligned during this transit. What you do professionally feels meaningful right now, and your sense of higher direction is actively informing your career. For Virgo individuals who have been feeling disconnected from purpose in their work, this can be a period of genuine realignment. For those who already feel their work is meaningful, this period can bring an elevation, more recognition, a higher profile opportunity, or a moment where your professional life moves to the next level. Venus sitting in your 10th house with Jupiter is extraordinary. Venus is your 9th house lord, the planet of fortune, sitting in your career house with the planet of expansion. This is a placement that can bring professional recognition that feels like genuine luck, but is really the product of longer-term dharmic effort. Jupiter in your 10th house amplifies Venus's grace, beauty, and social appeal in your professional sphere. You may find that people in authority positions respond to you more warmly and generously during this period. Professional relationships deepen. There is an expansiveness to your professional environment that did not exist before. Mercury in your 9th house makes you intellectually hungry during this fortnight. You want to learn, to teach, to explore ideas that are larger than your daily routine. You will find yourself drawn to books, lectures, philosophical conversations, interactions with mentors or teachers, and anything that gives you a broader perspective on your life and direction. If you have any professional development, advanced study, or educational certification on your agenda, this is a particularly supportive window to begin or intensify that effort. Mercury in the 9th house is in a zone that resonates beautifully with its natural love of knowledge and communication. Sun is also in Taurus, in your 9th house alongside Mercury. Sun rules your 12th house through Leo for Virgo individuals. This is a somewhat mixed signal from the Sun. The 12th house lord in the 9th house can indicate spiritual journeys, expenses related to travel or education, or a connection to foreign places and teachings. There may be travel, either physical or intellectual, connected to your professional or educational growth. Sun in the 9th house also brings a certain authority and decisiveness to your philosophical and spiritual thinking. You are not just absorbing knowledge during this period, you are filtering it and forming strong views about what actually aligns with your path. For Virgo individuals working in fields that involve teaching, writing, publishing, law, higher education, religion, international business, or consulting, this transit is one of the most favored periods of May. The 9th-10th Dharma-Karma Yoga in action means that your knowledge and credibility are your greatest professional assets right now, and the world is receptive to receiving them. If you have been wanting to publish something, launch an educational offering, expand into a new market, or establish yourself as a thought leader in your field, do not wait until after May 29th. The window is open and active. Saturn's aspect from Pisces is landing on your 9th house. Saturn aspecting the 9th house can bring a certain heaviness or seriousness to your philosophical and spiritual matters. Your faith in your overall direction may be tested, or you may find yourself questioning whether your current path truly aligns with your deeper values. This is not something to resist. Saturn here is doing the work of deepening and purifying your understanding of your Dharma. The questions it raises are worth sitting with. Superficial certainty gives way to something more grounded and authentic under Saturn's gaze. Long-distance travel is activated during this period. If you have been planning to travel for education, a pilgrimage, or professional reasons, this is a window where that travel is more likely to happen and more likely to be productive. Connections made during travel in this period can prove to be significant over the longer term. The Mercury-Venus Parivartana with Jupiter's expansion in your 10th house creates a rare alignment of fortune, career, and communication for Virgo individuals. This is one of the most favorable transit configurations of the year for your sign. Do not let it pass without taking action on at least one meaningful professional or educational goal. For Libra, Mercury is transiting through Taurus, your 8th house, from May 15th to May 29th. The 8th house is one of the deeper and more complex houses in the chart. It governs transformation, sudden events, occult and hidden knowledge, shared resources, joint finances, inheritance, insurance, research, and the kind of change that is not always comfortable but always meaningful. Mercury rules your 9th house through Gemini and your 12th house through Virgo. So the planet of communication and curiosity is now in your transformation zone, and it brings with it the energy of higher wisdom and of hidden, behind-the-scenes matters. The Parivartana Yoga forming during this transit is between Mercury in Taurus, your 8th house, and Venus in Gemini, your 9th house. Venus is your 8th and 1st house lord for Libra individuals. Venus rules your 1st house through Libra and your 8th house through Taurus. Venus has moved into your 9th house with Jupiter. Mercury, which rules your 9th and 12th houses, is in your 8th house. The exchange creates a loop between your 8th and 9th houses. This is a Parivartana that carries significant depth and inward focus. The 8th house is about diving beneath the surface, and the 9th house is about seeking higher meaning. When the lords of these two houses exchange, the search for meaning goes very deep. For Libra individuals, this transit is less about external activity and more about a very real inner journey. You are likely to be drawn to research, to investigation, to looking beneath the obvious surface of things, whether that applies to a financial matter, a personal situation, a creative project, or a spiritual question. Venus sitting in your 9th house with Jupiter is a beautiful placement from a personal and philosophical standpoint. Your 9th house is the house of Dharma, higher learning, and your sense of righteous direction. Venus as your 1st house lord, the planet representing your personal identity and sense of beauty, sitting in the 9th house with Jupiter suggests that your personal path during this period is being expanded and blessed by a broader sense of meaning. You may find that your spiritual or philosophical inclinations are more active than usual. There is a natural pull toward reading, learning, connecting with teachers or wisdom traditions, and traveling either physically or mentally towards something that feels bigger than your everyday life. Mercury in your 8th house brings your analytical and communicative intelligence into contact with 8th house subjects. You may find yourself doing significant research during this window, digging into a topic in depth, investigating a financial matter, or exploring a subject related to health, hidden knowledge, or shared resources. Mercury in the 8th house is actually quite productive for research-oriented work. The 8th house has no end to what it contains, and Mercury's natural curiosity is well exercised here. If you are working on any kind of investigation, academic research, financial due diligence, or writing that requires depth and thoroughness, This fortnight supports that effort. Sun is also in Taurus, in your 8th house alongside Mercury. Sun rules your 11th house through Leo for Libra individuals. The 11th house lord being in the 8th can indicate income connected to joint ventures, shared investments, insurance-related matters, or resources that come through someone else's generosity or through a shared arrangement. There may also be conversations or decisions involving long-pending financial matters, things connected to inheritance, a shared asset, or a financial agreement that has been sitting unresolved. Sun in the 8th house also brings a certain forceful quality to your sense of agency in these matters. You are less willing to stay passive about things that have been left unaddressed. The Mercury-Venus Parivartana with Jupiter in the 9th also favors any kind of metaphysical or spiritual research. If you have been curious about astrology, healing modalities, energy practices, or any kind of occult or esoteric knowledge, this is a period where that curiosity will be especially active and productive. The 9th house is also the house of philosophy and higher education, and with Mercury and Venus exchanging between your 8th and 9th houses, the link between hidden knowledge and higher wisdom is very strong right now. Learning that comes from deep exploration, not surface-level information but genuine investigation, is richly supported. Saturn's aspect on Taurus from Pisces adds weight and seriousness to your 8th house. Saturn aspecting the 8th house tends to make the transformation it governs feel more serious and more deliberate. There may be a sense that something in your life needs to fundamentally change, and that the change cannot be avoided or delayed much longer. Saturn and Mercury together in the 8th house region can also bring documentation, legal, or bureaucratic matters to your attention. Old papers, pending agreements, financial documents, or matters involving shared assets may need your attention and resolution during this window. For Libra individuals in healing professions, research roles, financial advisory or investment work, psychology, or any field that requires dealing with depth and complexity, this is an active transit. Your communication in professional settings during this period has a quality of depth and precision that earns credibility. One of the most useful things you can do during this transit is to have the financial conversations you have been avoiding. Whether that involves a shared asset, a business partnership agreement, an insurance policy, or a matter related to someone else's money, Mercury in the 8th house gives you the analytical clarity to approach these conversations with intelligence and care. This transit for Libra is about going deep rather than going broad. Resist the temptation to spread your energy across many surface-level activities. The real gains of this period come from concentrated investigation, honest financial review, and genuine engagement with the questions that your inner life is raising right now. For Scorpio, Mercury is transiting through Taurus, your 7th house, from May 15th to May 29th. The 7th house is the house of partnerships, marriage, one-on-one relationships, open competitors, business partnerships, legal agreements, and your connection with the public through direct engagement. It is the house that describes who you collaborate with, who you commit to, and how you navigate relationships that require equality and mutual recognition. Mercury rules your 8th house through Gemini and your 11th house through Virgo. So Mercury brings the energy of shared resources, transformation, and financial gains into your partnership zone. The Parivartana Yoga forming during this transit is between Mercury in Taurus, your 7th house, and Venus in Gemini, your 8th house. Venus rules your 7th house through Taurus and your 12th house through Libra for Scorpio individuals. Venus has moved into your 8th house with Jupiter. Mercury, which rules your 8th and 11th houses, is now in your 7th house. Venus, which rules your 7th and 12th houses, is in Mercury's sign in your 8th house. The exchange creates a loop between your 7th and 8th houses. This Parivartana activates a very intimate and sometimes intense dynamic. The 7th house is about visible, acknowledged partnerships. The 8th house is about what happens beneath the surface in those partnerships, the shared resources, the private agreements, the hidden dynamics, the joint transformations. When the lords of these two houses exchange during a transit, the boundary between what is public and acknowledged in a relationship and what is private and unspoken becomes very thin. Conversations that normally stay below the surface tend to come up. For those in a committed relationship or marriage, this is a fortnight where significant conversations with your partner are likely. Mercury in your 7th house puts communication at the center of your relationship life. You are more talkative with your partner than usual, more curious about what they are thinking, and more inclined to discuss things that have been sitting unaddressed. Venus as your 7th house lord sitting in the 8th with Jupiter creates an interesting dynamic. Your partner may be going through something significant, something that involves their own resources, their own transformation, or their own hidden matters, and your relationship is being touched by that. The natural friendship between Mercury and Venus significantly softens what might otherwise be a more difficult Parivartana involving the 8th house. Rather than producing crisis or conflict, this exchange is more likely to produce honest and ultimately healing conversations and partnerships. Things are said clearly and with warmth. Jupiter's presence with Venus in the 8th house expands whatever is discovered in that intimate, below-the-surface space with wisdom and a sense of larger meaning. Even difficult relationship conversations during this window have a quality of being genuinely productive rather than destructive. For Scorpio individuals in business, the 7th house Mercury is equally active. Business negotiations, client meetings, one-on-one professional partnerships, and any situation where you are dealing directly with a counterpart are all in play during these 2 weeks. Mercury in Taurus gives your communication in these professional partnerships a grounded, sensory, and aesthetically intelligent quality. You come across as someone who knows what things are worth and who communicates that value confidently. Sun is also in Taurus, sitting in your 7th house alongside Mercury. Sun rules your 10th house through Leo for Scorpio individuals. The 10th house is about career, authority, and public life. The 10th house lord in the 7th house is a classic indicator of career advancement through partnerships. A client, collaborator, or business partner may be instrumental in your professional progress during this period. Alternatively, a conversation with someone in authority. A mentor, a senior professional contact, or a figure in your industry could prove to be career-defining. Sun in the 7th house can also mean that your professional identity is being shaped or evaluated through how you engage with others right now. The impressions you leave in one-on-one interactions during this window carry more long-term professional significance than they might appear to in the moment. Do not underestimate the meetings and one-on-one interactions you have during this transit window. Mercury in the 7th house also makes you more analytically aware of your partnerships and how they are functioning. You may find yourself evaluating your relationships more carefully than usual, not necessarily in a cold or detached way, but with a sharper eye for what is working, what needs adjusting, and what agreements need to be revisited. This clarity is useful. If there are any contracts, agreements, or formal commitments that need to be signed, reviewed, or renegotiated, this is a good window for those conversations. Saturn's aspect from Pisces is landing on your 7th house. Saturn aspecting the 7th house can introduce a certain weight and seriousness into your partnerships. There may be a feeling that a relationship or collaboration needs to be evaluated more honestly than it has been. Unrealistic expectations in partnerships tend to get corrected under Saturn's gaze. This is actually useful. Saturn in the 7th does not destroy good partnerships, it strengthens them by removing what is not genuine. But it does tend to highlight where a partnership is built more on convenience or illusion than on substance. For Scorpio individuals who are separated from their partner due to work or travel, the 7th house configuration with Sun may indicate reunion or a significant conversation across distance. The 8th house Parivartana also suggests that even if the physical distance remains, the depth of connection in the relationship is being renewed during this period. Financially, the 11th house energy that Mercury carries into the 7th can translate into income through partnerships or through deals closed during this window. If you are negotiating any kind of agreement where both parties benefit from the outcome, the Parivartana supports reaching a conclusion during these 2 weeks. Push the conversation forward rather than waiting. For Sagittarius, Mercury is transiting through Taurus, your 6th house, from May 15th to May 29th. The 6th house governs your daily work, service orientation, health, conflicts with competitors and obstacles, discipline, and the routines that either strengthen or weaken you. It is a house of effort and problem solving. Mercury rules your 7th house through Gemini and your 10th house through Virgo. So Mercury is bringing the energy of partnerships and career into your zone of daily work and competition. The Parivartana Yoga during this transit is between Mercury in Taurus, your 6th house, and Venus in Gemini, your 7th house. Venus rules your 6th house through Taurus and your 11th house through Libra for Sagittarius individuals. Venus has moved into your 7th house with Jupiter. Mercury rules your 7th and 10th houses and is now sitting in your 6th house. Venus rules your 6th and 11th houses and is sitting in your 7th. The exchange creates a loop between your 6th and 7th houses. For Sagittarius individuals, this Parivartana activates a very direct and practical dynamic between your work environment and your partnerships. The sixth house is where you put in daily effort, deal with workplace challenges, handle service-related tasks, and navigate competition. The seventh house is where your clients, business partners, and key collaborators live. When these two houses enter a Parivartana through Mercury and Venus, the work you do and the people you work with become very closely intertwined. In practical terms, this is an exceptionally active window for work-based communication. Mercury in your sixth house makes your analytical, problem-solving, and communication skills very sharp. You are thinking about your work with unusual clarity. You are assessing what is working, what is not, and what needs to be dealt with strategically. Mercury in the sixth is the placement of someone who handles competition and challenges with intelligence rather than brute force. You are naturally more adept during this window at finding clever solutions to workplace obstacles. Venus sitting in your seventh house with Jupiter is a genuinely positive influence on your professional partnerships. Jupiter is expanding whatever Venus touches in your seventh house, and Venus is your sixth house lord, the planet of the work you do every day. This suggests that your professional partners, clients, or collaborators are in an expansive and generous phase right now, which benefits your working relationship. New collaborations can begin during this period, and existing professional relationships can deepen into something more substantial. A client who has been considering working with you more seriously, a business partner who wants to formalize an arrangement, or a collaborator who brings resources and reach, these kinds of developments are supported by this configuration. Sun is also in Taurus, sitting in your sixth house alongside Mercury. Sun rules your ninth house through Leo for Sagittarius individuals. The ninth house is about your dharma, higher education, and broader sense of direction. The ninth house lord in the sixth house during this transit means that your sense of purpose and your daily work are converging. There is a feeling of working towards something larger and more meaningful than your daily routine, even within your routine. Tasks that might normally feel tedious can feel more purposeful under this influence. There is also a connection between your work and any educational or philosophical development that is happening in your life. If you are studying, writing, or developing expertise, that effort feeds directly into your work quality. Mercury in the sixth house also has strong health implications. Your awareness of your own physical condition is heightened during this fortnight. You may find yourself researching health-related topics, paying more attention to your diet, exercise, or sleep, or having conversations with healthcare providers that feel more productive than usual. Mercury here makes you analytical about your health, which is actually a useful quality. Do not ignore physical signals during this period. Address minor issues before they require more significant attention. From a competitive standpoint, Mercury in the sixth house is an excellent placement for outmaneuvering rivals or dealing with obstacles in a strategic way. If you have been facing competition in your professional life, a colleague who is angling for the same position, a competitor in your market, or a legal or bureaucratic obstacle that has been blocking progress, this is a window where your ability to communicate strategically and act intelligently gives you an edge. The sixth house in Vedic astrology also responds well to Mercury's natural tendency to analyze and categorize. You are able to see the moving parts of a complicated situation with unusual clarity right now, which makes this an excellent time to resolve anything that has been stuck due to confusion or lack of information. Do not fight head-on when you can outthink. Saturn's aspect from Pisces is falling on your sixth house. Saturn and the sixth house have a natural connection, since Saturn is naturally associated with discipline, effort, and service. Saturn aspecting your sixth house during this transit reinforces the theme of serious and sustained effort. There are no shortcuts during this window. The results you want, whether in health, in dealing with competitors, or in your work performance, will come through consistent, disciplined action. Saturn here also cautions against taking on more obligations than you can realistically handle. Overcommitment is a risk when Mercury is active in the sixth house, because Mercury makes everything look manageable and movable. Saturn is the reality check on that optimism. For Sagittarius individuals running a service-based business or working in roles involving health, legal processes, finance, or daily operations, this Mercury transit through your sixth house is a productive window for getting important work done, resolving pending issues, and strengthening your professional processes. Focus your communication on solutions during these 2 weeks, and let Venus and Jupiter in your seventh house bring the collaborative support you need. For Capricorn, Mercury is transiting through Taurus, your fifth house, from May 15th to May 29th. The fifth house governs creativity, intelligence, education, children, romantic connections, your ability to speculate and take calculated risks, and the expression of your unique talents. It is the house of what you create and what you love making. Mercury rules your sixth house through Gemini and your ninth house through Virgo. So the planet of intelligence and communication is now in your zone of creativity and self-expression, bringing with it the energy of disciplined work and higher wisdom. The Parivartana Yoga during this transit is between Mercury in Taurus, your fifth house, and Venus in Gemini, your sixth house. Venus rules your fifth house through Taurus and your 10th house through Libra for Capricorn individuals. Venus has moved into your sixth house with Jupiter. Mercury, which rules your sixth and ninth houses, is now in your fifth house. Venus, which rules your fifth and 10th houses, is in Mercury's sign in your sixth house. The exchange creates a loop between your fifth and sixth houses. This Parivartana is particularly interesting for Capricorn individuals because it links your creative and intellectual life directly to your work and service environment. The fifth house is where your intelligence and creativity live. The sixth house is where you apply effort, handle daily responsibilities, and serve others. When these two houses enter an exchange through Venus and Mercury, the work you do is infused with creativity, and your creative endeavors have a practical, service-oriented quality. For those in creative professions, this is one of the more productive windows of May. Mercury in your fifth house sharpens your mind and makes you genuinely more creative and curious. You are thinking in new ways, making new connections between ideas, and finding that your creative output has a natural fluency right now. The sign exchange with Venus amplifies this further because Venus is the planet of beauty, aesthetics, and artistic sensibility. Mercury-Venus Parivartana consistently produces high-quality creative and intellectual work, particularly in forms that combine knowledge and beauty: writing, music, design, strategic thinking, and education. Venus sitting in your sixth house with Jupiter is a beneficial combination. Your sixth house is the domain of your daily work and service. Venus as your fifth and 10th house lord being in the sixth with Jupiter suggests that your work environment during this period has an expanded and somewhat pleasant quality. There may be more creative freedom in your work, or a project that requires both skill and aesthetic judgment may be taking up your focus. Jupiter in the sixth can indicate that the effort you put in during this fortnight is rewarded with recognition and professional satisfaction, though the recognition may come slightly later given Saturn's influence. Sun is also in Taurus, sitting in your fifth house alongside Mercury. Sun rules your eighth house through Leo for Capricorn individuals. The eighth house is about transformation, hidden matters, and depth. The eighth house lord in the fifth brings a certain intensity and depth to your creative and romantic life during this period. Creative work during this window may touch on deeper, more complex themes than your usual output. If you are a writer, artist, musician, or thinker, the material you explore in this fortnight may carry more psychological or transformative weight than your everyday work. Do not shy away from the depth. For Capricorn individuals with children, the fifth house is the house of your children's lives and their education. Mercury in the fifth with Sun alongside it makes communication with or about your children more active. There may be conversations about their education, their development, or a creative or academic project they are working on. If your children are old enough to discuss their future plans, this is a good window for those conversations. Mercury in the fifth makes you more curious about and engaged with what is happening in their world. From an educational standpoint, if you are currently studying or have been planning to pursue further education or certification, this Mercury transit through your fifth house is a genuinely supportive window to commit to that effort. Mercury in the fifth is the placement of the eager student, the one who is curious enough to actually do the work. Pair that with the ninth house energy Mercury carries, and you have a window where learning something of real substance and depth is especially productive. The ninth house connection also means that if you have been looking for a mentor or a teacher in your field, the right introduction or connection is more likely to happen in this 2-week window than in the weeks surrounding it. Romantic matters may also be more intellectually and conversationally active during this fortnight. Mercury in the fifth increases the verbal and intellectual dimension of romantic connections. If you are in a relationship, you and your partner are likely to have more interesting and engaging conversations during this period than usual. If you are single and open to meeting someone, the conversations you have now are more likely to be genuinely stimulating. Saturn's aspect from Pisces is landing on your fifth house. Saturn in the fifth house tends to bring a seriousness to creative and educational matters. You may feel that the creative work you are doing needs to be more disciplined or more rigorous than you had initially planned. Saturn here is not a block to creativity, it is a demand that your creativity produce something of real quality and lasting value rather than something that is clever but shallow. Accept the discipline and let it make your work better. This is a productive and creatively active transit for Capricorn. Focus on your intellectual and creative output, invest in education, and use Mercury's intelligence in your 5th house to do work that genuinely reflects the best of your mind and talent. For Aquarius, Mercury is transiting through Taurus, your 4th house, from May 15th to May 29th. The 4th house governs your home environment, your relationship with your mother, your emotional foundations, your property and real estate, your inner peace, and the roots from which your outer life grows. It is one of the most personal and foundational houses in the chart. Mercury rules your 5th house through Gemini and your 8th house through Virgo. So the planet of communication and intelligence is now sitting in the most private and domestically grounded area of your chart. The Parivartana Yoga forming during this transit is between Mercury in Taurus, your 4th house, and Venus in Gemini, your 5th house. Venus rules your 4th house through Taurus and your 9th house through Libra for Aquarius individuals. Venus has moved into your 5th house with Jupiter. Mercury, which rules your 5th and 8th houses, is now in your 4th house. Venus, which rules your 4th and 9th houses, is in Mercury's sign in your 5th house. The exchange creates a loop between your 4th and 5th houses. This is a Maha Parivartana Yoga because both the 4th and 5th houses are auspicious houses, and the 9th house Lord Venus is also involved. For Aquarius individuals, this Parivartana creates a genuinely beautiful loop between your home and roots on one hand and your creative and intellectual life on the other. These two areas of life are feeding each other actively during this fortnight. What happens at home inspires your creative work, and your creative and intellectual growth is bringing more warmth and beauty into your home environment. Venus sitting in your 5th house with Jupiter is an excellent combination. Your 5th house is the house of creativity, children, romance, education, and the expression of your unique intelligence. Venus as your 4th and 9th house lord sitting in the 5th house with Jupiter is a placement that brings expansion, grace, and good fortune to your creative endeavors. If you are working on a creative project, an educational course, or any form of self-expression, the energy of this fortnight supports it generously. Jupiter in the 5th house with Venus can also indicate good news or positive developments related to children, or a sense of renewed joy and inspiration in something you genuinely love doing. Mercury in your 4th house makes your home environment a place of active communication and mental activity. You are spending more mental energy on matters related to home, property, family, and your relationship with your mother. There may be conversations about your living situation, plans for your home space, property-related decisions, or discussions about your family's practical needs. Mercury in the 4th house also tends to increase the amount of work or study being done from home. If you work remotely or are doing any kind of creative or intellectual work from your home base, this is a productive window for that. For those considering a property decision buying, renting, renovating, or investing in real estate, this Mercury transit through your 4th house with the Parivartana activating your 4th and 5th house connection is a good window to research, discuss, and plan. Mercury's analytical energy is focused on the foundation of your life, and that is useful for any decision that involves where you live and how you structure your domestic world. Venus and Jupiter in the 5th house suggest that the financial or creative logic behind a property decision can feel more optimistic and expansive than usual. Just make sure the optimism is grounded in real analysis, which Mercury in Taurus naturally provides. Sun is also in Taurus, sitting in your 4th house alongside Mercury. Sun rules your 7th house through Leo for Aquarius individuals. The 7th house lord in the 4th house suggests that a partner or collaborator is influencing your home and domestic decisions during this period. There may be joint decisions being made about your living situation, your family, or your property involving someone you are in a committed relationship or partnership with. Sun in the 4th also gives a certain authoritative and directional quality to your thinking about your domestic life. You are more decisive about what you want your home environment to look like, and you are more willing to make changes to create that. The mother is a significant figure during this Mercury transit through the 4th house. Conversations with or about your mother are likely more frequent and more meaningful than usual. If there is a matter involving your mother's health, well-being, living arrangements, or emotional needs, it may surface for attention during this window. Mercury in the 4th gives you both the awareness and the analytical clarity to address these matters thoughtfully. Saturn's aspect from Pisces is landing on your 4th house. Saturn aspecting the 4th house can make the home environment feel heavier or more pressured than usual. There may be a sense of responsibility toward your family that weighs on you, or a practical matter related to your home, a repair, a structural issue, a financial obligation connected to your property that demands attention. Saturn here does not wish to disrupt your domestic peace permanently, but it does ask that you deal honestly and responsibly with whatever in your domestic life has been left unaddressed. For Aquarius individuals, this transit is ultimately about the connection between where you are rooted and where you are going creatively and intellectually. The 4th-5th Parivartana with Jupiter's blessing in the 5th is a rare and genuinely supportive configuration. Invest in your home, invest in your relationship with your mother, and invest in the creative and educational work that excites you. These 2 weeks have the potential to deepen both your emotional foundations and your creative expression in ways that pay dividends long after the transit is over. For Pisces, Mercury is transiting through Taurus, your 3rd house, from May 15th to May 29th. The 3rd house governs communication, your own personal efforts and initiatives, short-distance travel, younger siblings, writing, media, teaching, counseling, and the courage to act on your ideas. It is the house of using your hands and mind in the world. Mercury rules your 4th house through Gemini and your 7th house through Virgo. So the planet of intelligence and communication is now sitting in the house that is most naturally aligned with its own energy, bringing the warmth of your home and the clarity of your partnerships into your zone of active effort and communication. The Parivartana Yoga during this transit is between Mercury in Taurus, your 3rd house, and Venus in Gemini, your 4th house. Venus rules your 3rd house through Taurus, and your 8th house through Libra for Pisces individuals. Venus has moved into your 4th house with Jupiter. Mercury, which rules your 4th and 7th houses, is now in your 3rd house. Venus, which rules your 3rd and 8th houses, is in Mercury's sign in your 4th house. The exchange creates a loop between your 3rd and 4th houses. This Parivartana connects your sphere of active communication and personal effort to your home, emotional foundation, and your relationship with your mother. For Pisces individuals, these are 2 very personal and close-to-heart areas of life, and this exchange makes them work together actively during these 2 weeks. The conversations you have, the initiatives you take, and the efforts you make during this period are deeply rooted in your personal and domestic life. You are not communicating from a detached or professional distance right now, you are communicating from a place of genuine personal feeling and domestic rootedness. Mercury in your 3rd house is one of the more naturally comfortable positions for Mercury's energy. The 3rd house aligns with Gemini's natural significations, and Mercury here is curious, communicative, active, and inclined towards sharing information, making short journeys, and initiating conversations. You will find yourself more talkative, more willing to reach out to people, and more interested in what others are thinking and doing. Writing, speaking, teaching, counseling, or any form of direct communication is supported by this placement. The Parivartana with Venus in the 4th house means that your communication efforts during this fortnight are connected to something emotionally meaningful. You are not just talking for the sake of it, there is a personal depth to what you are communicating. If you are a writer, your writing during this period may have a more intimate and personally resonant quality. If you are in a counseling, teaching, or advisory role, your ability to connect with people on a human and emotional level is heightened. The Mercury-Venus combination in creative communication is one of the best configurations for any form of writing or artistic expression that requires both intelligence and beauty. Venus sitting in your 4th house with Jupiter is a genuinely positive influence on your domestic life. Jupiter expands and blesses whatever Venus touches, and with Venus as your 3rd house lord in the 4th house, there is a sense of good fortune and warmth in your home environment. Family relationships may feel more harmonious than usual. Your mother may be doing especially well or going through a positive phase of life. There may be an event, gathering, or development in your home that brings genuine joy. Jupiter in the 4th house is also a classic indicator of property-related good news or an improvement in your living situation. Sun is also in Taurus, sitting in your 3rd house alongside Mercury. Sun rules your 6th house through Leo for Pisces individuals. The 6th house is about daily work, health, and service. The 6th house lord in the 3rd house suggests that your daily work and health matters are being communicated about actively. There may be more work-related conversations happening, emails, calls, discussions about your professional role, or communication about health matters that require attention. Sun in the 3rd house also gives a confident and authoritative quality to your communication during this period. You are more willing to say what you think directly, and people around you are more likely to take your words seriously. For Pisces individuals in any kind of communication, media, writing, or teaching profession, this Mercury transit through your third house is one of the most productive windows of May. The Parivartana with Venus in the fourth ensures that your communication has not just technical quality but also emotional depth and personal authenticity. Work produced during this window tends to resonate with audiences on a more personal level. If you are working on content, a course, a book, articles, or any kind of educational or creative material, the effort you put in during these 2 weeks will likely be some of your best. Saturn's aspect from Pisces is landing on your third house. Saturn aspecting the third house adds a layer of seriousness and effort to your communication and initiatives. There may be tasks or commitments that require more hard work and sustained effort than you initially expected. Saturn here does not prevent success, but it does insist that your efforts be genuine and disciplined. Half-hearted communication or incomplete efforts will simply not produce results under Saturn's gaze on your third house. Give your best to whatever you initiate during this window. One area to be mindful of is the 8th house energy that Venus carries into your 4th house. Venus, as your 8th house lord sitting in the 4th with Jupiter, can indicate some sudden or unexpected domestic developments that require adaptability. Jupiter's presence ensures that even surprising situations carry within them a seed of growth or benefit. For Pisces individuals, this Mercury transit through the 3rd house is a call to communicate more bravely, more personally, and more purposefully. Your words have real weight and real resonance during these 2 weeks. Use that quality deliberately in your professional work, in your personal relationships, and in any creative project that deserves your full and authentic attention. As we conclude this episode, please keep in mind that these insights are based on the sidereal zodiac system used in Vedic astrology, which differs from the tropical system by approximately 24 degrees. These are general predictions. The real impact depends on your dasha cycles and your individual birth chart. For a personalized analysis or consultation, feel free to reach out. If you found this video valuable, please like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And now, you can also hype this video to boost it within the community. Your support helps this knowledge reach more people who may benefit. Thank you for watching. Stay aware, keep learning, and keep shining bright.